Oh my gosh. 3 variables. Please make sure you are starting with a nice clean sheet of paper. And for some of you, a nice whole new notebook for this problem. Believe it or not, you may soon be comfortable with doing more than one step at a time. That'll save you a lot of paper. If you're not there yet, totally fine. You may have noticed it's very easy to forget a negative sign or add a negative sign from one step to the other. And as soon as you lose a negative or incorrectly add or subtract, there goes the whole problem. So today I'll show you how to check the whole thing in your calculator. Again, use that to make sure you did the problem right, not to get the answer. What I mean is I don't want everyone to go through their homework, use their calculator, and never learn how to do this. Because again, we're doing this for 3 chapters, this process. So I'll find it a miracle that everyone gets it correct on their homework, but then does not get it correct on the test. Okay? That's what's called cheating. And cheating is bad. All right. I'm going to write the goal, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to erase it later. So going across, what is the goal? Well, 1, 0, 0. We don't know what this is going to be. Awesome. We're talking in ones and zeros. It's like we're robots. You want the good news or the bad news? Let's start with the good news. Good news! We're already 1/9 done. We already have a 1 in the top left corner. Hooray! But you might also say, even better news, we already have a 1 in the bottom left corner, bottom right corner. No, that's not good news. Because in the process of making the -3 and the 1 in the first column a 0, we're going to lose that 1. It's okay. We'll have to get it back eventually. So we are ignoring everything but the first column. So who cares if there's a 1 in the 3-3 entry? It's not going to make a difference to what we're doing. So ignoring everything else, boop, where this -3 is at, we need a 0. And actually, as a comment, it doesn't matter the order in which you make your zeros. If you want to make your -3 into a 0 first, great. If you want to make your +1 into a 0 first, super. It doesn't matter. So we already got our 1 in the 1-1 entry. Where the 2-1 entry is at, the -3 there, let's make that a 0. So once we multiply this guy by the 1-1, yeah, so when we add it to row 2, we get a 0? 3. So 3 row 1 plus row 2 makes row 2. Let's write in the rows that do not change first, so we don't have to worry about them. Which rows are not changing? 1 and 3, first and bottom, right. So I'm just going to write these in, so I don't have to worry about them. Again, that's my opinion, just to get those out of the way, less to think about. Bam. So what is 3 times the first row off to the side? 3, 3, 18. Taking those numbers in black and adding them to the second row, -3 and 3, 0. 3 and -4, -1, how nice. 6 and 2, and 18 and -11. We are 22% complete. Yeah. So we'll do negative row 1 plus row 3 makes the new row 3. Actually, let's fill in the rows that don't change. Which rows won't change this time? 1 and 2. So what is -1 times the first row? Awesome. Like, I love elementary operations. I know, class. Add corresponding entries. What's 1 to negative 1? 0. 3 and negative 1. 1 and negative 2. 7 and negative 6. So notice we lost our 1 in the 3, 3 entry. Wah, 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 wah. The first column is done. We now move on to the second column. So going down, we need 0, 1, 0. How is everyone so far? Okay. I'm going to throw a wrench into things. This is just a warning. Once, and I'm going to say this like 8 times, so feel free to write it down at least 7 of those times. Once the first column is done, once the first column is done, you may no longer use the first row to change any other row. And I'll explain what I mean. Once the first column is done, you may no longer use the first row to change any other row. Okay, great question. All right, let's suppose, for funsies, that was a 0 there. Okay, just making this up. So everyone pretend there's a 0 there. Got it? Good. And then you might say, well, notice if I added the first row and the second row, 1 plus 0 would make a 1 there, which I need. Well, notice I would have used the first row to change the second row. The problem is, I would lose this 0 in the process. So if you use the first row to change any other row from this point on, you're going to lose your zeros. And we don't want that. So literally what is happening is you're painting yourself in a corner as to what you're allowed to use. Okay? So as Drew had mentioned, once we finish the second row of the second column, we can no longer use the second row to change any other row. Now notice the way I said that. You can no longer use the first row to change any other row. I did not say you cannot make changes to the first row. You're still going to have to make changes to the first row, but it doesn't go the other way. So one more time. Once the first column is done, you can no longer use the first row to change any other row. You can add to the first row, but you can't use the first row to add to any other row. And it's not that you can't. You totally can. However, you'd be undoing your work. You'll lose your zeros. You can add something to the first row, but you can't add the first row to something. Because then we'll lose our zeros. Sure. I'll write it down, and then I'm going to erase it, though. Okay? Let me make one up. Blah. Blah. 2 by 2. Smaller. Okay. We had just finished the first column. And now we have to make this 4 into a 1. All right? Even though negative 3 and 4 would make a 1, we don't want to add the first row to the second. Because if we did add the first row to the second, notice the first row wouldn't change. Blah. Then if I added 1 plus 0 would be 1. Negative 3 and 4 would be 1. And then more blah. But notice the problem was we lost our 0. So making the first column complete was undone because we used the first row to change another row. You'd have to multiply by a fourth. No, what I said was, I didn't say start with 1, I said make your 1 first. So, for each column. Well, so we're not making all the 1s. I was saying within that column, make your 1 and then make your 0s. So now we're only focusing on the second column.
Right, so we should make our 1 first.
We should make this -1 into a 1, and then make these guys into 0s. Now, you can, here's another wrench, you're welcome to make your 0 first. For instance, if we added the second row to the first row, it'd make a 0. So it's really up to you. I like making the 1 first, A, for consistency, and B, it's easy to work with. So why don't we just make our 1 first? So what should we multiply -1 by to turn it into a 1? -1. So we'll do negative row 2 makes the new row 2. So switch all the signs in the second row. What's our new second row? Good. And the first 2 rows do not change. So we're still in the second column. This 1 and this 2 need to become 0s. Let's focus on the 1 first. What should you multiply the second row by so when you add it to the first row, it makes 0? -1. Is that okay with everyone? Go on. Yes. Yes. Tomato, tomato. Yeah. Regardless, you're going to have to add to the first row. Regardless, you're going to have to multiply by -1. Order in which you do it won't matter. Yes. So he was using the third operation here to make a 1. Since no fractions were involved, it was okay to just multiply by -1. If that would have made a fractions, I would totally have R3 to R2. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So when you're doing the elementary row operations, it's like baking. You do your first step, then in the next step, you use your previous step. Next step, you use your previous step. If you've not baked or cooked, come on, you're all adults. You should be baking and cooking right now. Not now, though. Bring something to class for me to sample. All right. So we'll do negative, don't kill me. Negative row 2 plus row 1 makes row 1. Which rows are not changing? 2 and 3, so I'm just going to write them in, get them out of the way, and off to the side. What is negative R2? Yeah. Yeah. Positive 7? Okay. Positive 8. Oh, very good. I made a mistake. Dun, 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 dun. 80,000 extra credit points to be used in your next class. Adding those black numbers to the first row, 1 and 0. Very good. Negative 1 and 1. 2 and 8. And 6, 7, 13. We are 55% complete. It's like we're downloading on a 14.4K modem. Thank you, one person. Where that 2 is at, we need a 0. What should we multiply the second row by? -2. Does anyone remember 14.4K modems? They were all the rage. No? Look, I'm in a message board. It's all text. What is -2 times the second row? 0. -2. Very good. You guys have been working on that. The first 2 rows do not change. Take those black numbers, add them to the third row. What do we get? 0, 0, 15, and 15 again. The second column is done. Lightning bolts. 3 more operations and we're done. Since the second column is done, we can no longer use the second row to change any other row. So where this 15 is at, we need a 1, and we're going to use that 1 to turn these 2 into. Try to do the last 3 on your own. I believe in you. Spooky, I believe in you. No! No! Don't do that! What I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this and move this matrix up. It makes me so happy. You can like rotate it. Oh yeah, rotate that 0. 3 more steps. So let's make sure your first step is complete. What I consider it should be your first step. Where that 15 is at, we need a 1. Let's use the second operation to make a 1, which we multiply the third row by. 1/15, the reciprocal. So this does not change the first 2 rows. So the new last row is 0, 0, 1, 1. If you would, take a minute here. So let's knock out that 10, which we multiply row 3 by, to add it to row 1 to make a 0 where that 10's at. -10. Nope. The order in which you make your zeros does not matter. So -10 row 3 plus row 1 makes the new row 1. This does not affect row 2 or row 3. If you made your -8 into a 0 first, this intermediate step will be different, but the final step should be the same for everyone. So -10 times the last row would be 0, 0, -10, -10. Ah, I didn't do that in black. Oh, that's terrible. It's too late. Damage is done. Taking those 4 numbers and add it to the corresponding 4 numbers in the first row, what do we get? So 0 and 1, 0 and 0. Good law firm name. -10 and 10. And -10 and +13. 0 and 0, attorneys at law. One last step. How do we turn that -8 into a 0? Now, -8 by 8, yep. 8 row 3 plus row 2 makes row 2. I'll redeem myself. What is 8 times the last row? I'm going to quickly write in the first and last rows. Adding those 4 digits to the second row, we get 311. Painless. That's pretty what? So again, as a comment, yes, we're only working with 3 variables. In chapter 4, we'll be going up to 10 variables. It's good times. The process is still the same though. I know, 10 variables. Yeah, you'll be learning to group steps together. And by group steps, I would suggest you make your zeros in one fell swoop. Because notice, whatever you do to row 1 is not going to affect what you do to row 2. So you can put these 2 steps together. If that makes sense. You can actually put all 3 of these in one fell swoop. But right now it's, oh my gosh, why? But in chapter 4, you'll be seeing this the 20th time you'll see it, so it'll make more sense.